Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Fast Keto. Today I have the incredible author Maria Emmerich joining us on Fast Keto, and she just wrote this fantastic new book called the Carnivore Cookbook. And we took questions from the community on the episode today. So we went through all of your burning questions that you had for Maria, and it's a really fun Q&A episode. I really enjoyed it, and we really got to chat about a lot of great topics and questions that you guys have. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed getting to record it. Alrighty, Maria, thank you so much for being back here on Fast Keto, and aloha to you over there in Hawaii.
Thank you for having me. I always like chatting with you.
You too. You have a gorgeous tan, so you guys have been making the most of the vitamin D over there.
I still I don't wear sunscreen all the time. I'll put that out because I do know that we need that. However, I would look like a lobster if I didn't wear anything. And so I have this big black hat that I wear. So I try to shade myself some, but we are outside nonstop. So it's hard to not get that vitamin D. But what's interesting, someone asked me, what is the best vitamin D for children? They posted that on my keto group, and someone commented right away, the sun. And I said, yes. However, my children are from Ethiopia, if you don't know. And when you adopt children, when you get to the United States, you immediately go to the doctor and get all these different tests done. And they had a vitamin D test done, and they were in the low 30s. Despite living on the equator and living basically outside. They basically lived outside in this sad area, but they have a dark skin. And so that's an automatic sunscreen that blocks a lot of vitamin D from being absorbed. And so even in the summertime, I'm really adamant about them taking certain supplements. And I know food does heal, but supplements are important too.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys have been doing tons of outdoors activities and probably at the beach a lot. So you're getting in all that grounding and just connecting with nature and everything. And I love that you make that such an integral part of your lifestyle, no matter where you are. If we're in Mallorca, you're out, getting in the ocean or, going down to the beach, you're always like making sure that's a part of your lifestyle. And I think that's so awesome.
I don't think I realized how much being outside made me happy until I was in college. I was always outside as a kid, but I didn't realize what a mood booster it is for me and how I would prefer to live, on the beach outside. It's just really important. Even in Wisconsin, when it's bitter cold, I still go outside and run every day. Sometimes it's so cold I have to wear a face mask, and I have like icicles hanging from my eyelash.
Icicles on your.
I know, right? But it's a part of me. I like to be outside, and I think that we've gotten away from that in a lot of ways. And some people, they're working hard, and they get in their cars in the morning, drive to work, sit at a cubicle, drive home, and it's dark.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but I do encourage people to spend some time outside, even if it's their lunch break or whatever.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, I've had you on the podcast a couple of times. I think it's maybe your third time on, and I've gotten to ask you so many questions. We got a lot of questions posted for you, but I wanted to just start off by asking you, I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but I know kind of your story of how you first went to see your vet, and she asked you, what are you feeding your dog? And you started to, be more aware of like diet and the connection. But a lot of people I see ask about, was Maria ever overweight, or like, what was her personal journey? How did you like first come across even the term keto? Like, how did that first come into your awareness?
I actually was just discussing this with my husband, Craig. So I'm 5'2", and at my highest weight, I was 165. And that's the obese category. So, whether you agree that that's really an obese category, I was I was heavy, and I was considered a Clydesdale runner because I was a runner at the time. I was always, I was just the big one. Yeah, I had PCOS, which is basically diabetes type 2 diabetes that affects female fertility. I had depression, I had IBS, I had acid reflux, and I didn't want that anymore. And when I was told I had PCOS, like, I love kids. If you know me and my kids, like, I just love being around them, and that really rocked my world, hearing that I was affecting my fertility by what I was eating. And what causes PCOS is excess carbohydrates and caffeine. And I worked at a coffee shop where I got to take home all the cinnamon rolls and scones and muffins at the end of the day, and I got free mochas during the day. So my diet had to completely change. And for me, habits are hard to change. And instead of cutting things out of my life, I'd like to replace them with healthier options or healthier activities. So instead of saying you could never have a cinnamon roll anymore, I just started going in the kitchen and like recreating some of my favorite foods to make them, I call it healthified, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's how a lot of people are, because some people are like, oh, so you're carnivore now? What about all of your old books? So like, they're great. If somebody would have told me when I first started that you can only eat steak every day, I'd be like, I'm not even going to try. No, I wouldn't have.
No thanks. Yeah.
And so like, there is no judging at all in my life. I encourage you to always take baby steps if you're not ready to rip the Band-Aid off, and always make new goals each week. So maybe you're just like, okay, I'm going to cut out the gluten, and then I'm going to maybe try, the sugar, whatever it is. I'm proud of everybody for making strides to be healthified. They don't have to go right to carnivore if they're not ready. And I don't judge anybody for their journeys, because their diets will evolve and change every year.
I love that. And it's so true, because I look at, there's a lot of people in the carnivore space who I talk to who say they never went through that keto phase at all. They went from standard American diet to carnivore. And I know for me, if I couldn't have had some of those keto treats and things and replacements, I just never would have even tried. I would have said, there's no way I can do that. So it does really help to make that transition. And also, to correct a lot of hormonal imbalance, with keto initially, that can be really, really helpful for someone. If they're going from a standard American diet to all of a sudden eating tons of protein, they may not have that same like regulation as if they had first moderated the protein and made kind of that transition. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, because when you first started writing about keto, like, there probably just weren't a lot of people talking about it. And yet you've helped make it so prominent and well known. And so I'm just curious, like, how did it first like come into your,
That's basically how it started, was like my diagnosis. It was when I was 16 years old. So that's over 20 years ago now. So for that long, for me being able to stay on the diet, like you said, I allowed myself to have, like my flourless chocolate torte or whatever I wanted. And so maybe I didn't lose weight right away, but my depression went away. I was much happier, and that's what kept me on the diet. It wasn't the weight loss, it was the happiness. And especially now, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and some people are so feeling out of control that's when they go to the carbohydrates and sugar. And I encourage them to, instead of falling off the wagon, back up and let yourself have some flourless chocolate torte, or let yourself have some healthified treats. So it's not an all or nothing thing. Like, if you're going to fall off, I would say, no, don't go to the Haagen-Dazs. Try to make your own ice cream. And like that way you can still have that comforting food without getting more anxiety. Because I've worked with a lot of men and women that have gone through different eating disorder clinics, one of which was the Emily program. and they encourage them to not fear food, which I understand, but at bedtime they make them have ice cream and cookies. I'm like, that alone is going to cause them more anxiety. It's not even about the fearing the food, but gluten, we know it's like going to cause sugar. It's going to cause more anxiety, which will perpetuate the eating disorder. So no matter why you're on this journey, weight loss aside, it's great for so many things, healing eating disorders to brain disorders, like whatever it is, it's great.
So when you first started, I know we talked a bit about your height and weight, but you probably didn't know what your body fat percentage and your muscle mass was at the time. I'm sure you have like some kind of estimations of it, but you say over time you started kind of feeling better, feeling happier, was correcting your mood. And then over time you sort of lost weight more, and then you kind of got to your goal from there. And then, I know you always are setting new goals for yourself. So I guess your goal was to get to just be strong and get to a certain healthy body fat percentage that you wanted to be at. I would guess you're in the fitness category or athletic category for, body fat and lean mass.
Yeah. And, new goals, they don't even have to be about weight or body size or shape. It could be like drinking more water, getting outside, grounding. These health goals can be just about anything, like maybe, getting your vitamin D optimized. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed with like the food aspect, make it different. Make it be like, no, my goal is to start yoga again. I used to teach yoga. I taught at Anderson Windows, which is like a huge corporate office over their lunch hour. So I was doing yoga like 5 times a day just because I taught it that much. I got away from it for years. And so my goal this year for the New Year's was to add that back in. So, that's just another thing that, and like you were talking about like body size and lean mass and all that. I always encourage people to get their own personal macros done if they aren't seeing the success that they're looking for. But for me, I was a minimalist, and nobody talked about macros. It wasn't called, nobody talked about keto then. It was just cutting out carbohydrates and sugar for me. So like my macros, I didn't count them. I'm a minimalist in all ways. I don't like checking ketones, anything like that. I'm not a gadget girl. I like to live very simple. But if you are stuck getting your macros, we have, different private Facebook groups. And when someone's stuck and very discouraged, the first question my husband asks is, what are your macros? My first question, are you eating dairy and nuts and bulletproof coffee? Because those things are like going to hold you back. Because he wants you to focus on, getting your protein in. Don't reach people always reach like a percentage of fat. They're like, oh, I didn't eat 80% fat today, so I did a shot of MCT oil. In what world did anybody say that was a good idea?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about lipolysis and getting into the negative fat flux. If you overfuel your body, you're going to use that fuel, that fuel is going to just, attach to you rather than you can't burn it all. It doesn't people have this idea that you can just eat as much fat as you want. Like, where does it go? It doesn't just shoot out you. It doesn't. It's physics, right? I mean, so that's where I get a little frustrated with this, because that's still being told. Eat as much fat as you want, and it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the one aspect of keto, that I see carnivore really fits in as a subset of it, is that it's about starch control. It's about carbohydrate control and getting those as low as possible, right?
Right. But I'm just wondering what your idea with eating as much fat as you want is okay? Do you think that 5,000 calories of fat a day is okay?
No, I mean, definitely not. And it depends on obviously depends on different people's goals and why they're doing, keto for, but I don't know where that comes from or why people think that fat just evaporates or something. Because I know that some fats we are using to make parts of our bodies, right? Our cell membranes, we're using
Fat.
right.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's an idea that calories don't matter. And
no, what I'm saying is that some of the, with protein, how there's the thermic effect. So you lose like thermogenic effects. So I know you speak about that all the time. You lose, 30-40% of the calories. And fat does have some of that because you do use some of it to make body structures as opposed to, and to make hormones and things as opposed to carbs where you don't. So I think maybe that might be where it comes from.
5%, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying no fat. I'm just saying there's an idea that I think that we've traded carb addiction and food addiction for, eating keto food in excess.
Right.
And
yeah, that can definitely happen and hold people back from their goals. So what was it for you in your personal journey that kind of made the big difference? So like you said at the beginning, like you weren't necessarily losing weight, but you were feeling better and better. So like what were things that you did that, helped you to get to your goals?
I always like learning about the protein and doing like pure protein days. I used to call them pure protein days. Now we call them like protein sparing modified fasting. That kind of term happened.
Yes.
That really accelerated things because like you've done a lot of tests and the absence of carbohydrates, protein doesn't turn into sugar, It's when you are also eating a lot of carbohydrates, then it becomes a problem. But yeah, that was always a big thing. Dairy was an important piece, and realizing that I've never been a big cauliflower rice, like that big craze. Realizing that even fibrous vegetables kind of held me back, but that was because I was so metabolically damaged per se, that, like an avocado, you can't subtract the fiber. I'm sorry for people that get upset about that, but the carbohydrates in avocado and all of those vegetables were holding me back, causing a lot of gut pain, and realizing that the nutrients are not in the vegetables or the avocado. So I didn't have a problem giving them up for more nutrient dense foods. And that's when I really probably transformed for sure.
Yeah, so you just kind of naturally went towards more and more carnivore over the years.
Yeah, what happened was, we have 2 kids, they're 9 and 10, and my parents were very critical of them not eating vegetables. They don't like vegetables. And so this was many years ago. Craig started doing charts of where the nutrients are and how much more nutrients are in the foods that they eat, like steak and salmon, all of these things. And I originally just started to show my parents and my mom that they're doing just fine.
Yeah.
And it kind of grew to like, hey, we should show these books these charts to the world. And we put them in our books. And even back with the keto book before the carnivore book, very eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first saw that chart that you guys had posted from keto, even I, knowing a lot about protein and fat and nutrients and nutrition and all of this stuff, I found the chart to be surprising, just to see it in front of your face, like beef and then like blueberries and kale and the superfoods next to each other, because we're just so specifically told that not only is beef not a superfood, but it's also potentially really bad for you, so it's a huge shift to like basically flip it upside down and see it from the other perspective.
Yeah, those charts are awesome. I love them. Thanks.
We really didn't eat much beef or red meat at all most of my life because my parents thought that was being healthy, and that's like I'm making up for a lifetime of not eating red meat. But it's such an incredible food, and you guys put beef, right in that chart. very, that was definitely the right food to compare with it, because it's just the amount of nutrients in there, and especially the iron, that we're always told is in spinach, but it's non-heme iron, right? The heme iron's all in the red meat, so.
And that was another thing, the whole bioavailability of food and nutrients that's another eye-opening piece, is that like oysters, we know oysters are filled with zinc, right? So, you get hundreds of milligrams of zinc. And then if you pair oysters with black beans, that drops to like 30%. And then if you have like corn chips with it, it's even worse. It drops to only 10%. And so what you're pairing with your food is really going to change how much you are absorbing that. So I thought that was really eye-opening about like what you eat with the beef liver is really important to healing. And I think the reason why we picked beef is because that's what the doctors say to stay away from. That red meat is causing cancer. Red meat is bad for diverticulitis and Crohn's and colitis. No, it is not. It's the vegetable oils. That's what's killing the gut.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Now, we got a lot of questions for you on Instagram, and people really, really appreciate being able to ask questions through the community that way. So I'd love to get into some of them here.
Yeah, all right.
Great. Now, someone asked about what an average day of eating is like for you, and I think that's one of the most popular questions on all the carnivore interviews. So that'd be a great one to start off with.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because everybody's body's different, and I'm running, and then when I'm done running, I'm usually on my paddle board and swimming and snorkeling and boogie boarding. So like I don't sit still. So I just don't want people to be like, well, Maria eats this, I can get away with that and lose weight or whatever. That's what I get concerned with. But I really like eggs. I really like scrambled eggs. So I usually have like 4 eggs, and sometimes I like smoked salmon in there. And I usually have my protein sparing modified fast bread with it. And that's like a really simple recipe of bread that's just all carnivore friendly. So I really like that. I usually make it in some sort of animal fat, like duck fat or leftover bacon fat, that type of stuff. And I really like hollandaise. So if I'm running more, I need more fat. And so I think that's something that people, like if you're trying to lose weight, I dial the fat down. But if you're an athlete trying to perform better, I dial it up. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
So, and then here is different than when I live in Wisconsin, but fish is really prevalent here. I usually never eat fish, but here I like mahi-mahi. So I usually have a piece of mahi-mahi, and I have a filet mignon. So I have those 2 things for my so-called like lunch dinner. And I started having a snack later in the day, closer to bed, just because people can be cruel and picking on size. So I'm trying to like put some weight on. And so one of the best ways to do that is eating before bed. So I'm trying to eat a little bit. So it sounds like I'm eating like throughout the whole day, but the meals are usually within like a 6-hour window.
Right.
I'm still intermittent fasting. It's within a 6-hour window. And that can be anything from like jerky, beef sticks, something like that, more scrambled eggs, something simple, fast, carnivore bread, that type of stuff.
Yeah, there was someone that asked this question and said, let me get the exact wording of it. Oh yeah. Nina Bullman, I wonder, and I am for sure not the only one, if she really eats what we see on her Instagram. And she had a second part to that question. And I wrote back and I said, are there any specific meals that you're talking about? And she's like, yes, all the fatty pork knuckle. The pork ribs, butter, pork bacon, and so on. And I was like, I've spent 2 weeks with Maria in Spain, and pork knuckle is her favorite. And
Yes.
I'm like, she eats all of that stuff, and her and I are like going back for seconds of like fatty duck and
Right. You were there with me, so yeah, I totally do.
But
I don't know.
like I think people are trained to look at food like that and think that's fattening, but they don't realize that that's fattening in the context of tons of carb sides with it, and maybe not a lot of activity. And it's really more like what you're pairing it with, whereas you can't really get fat or obese from eating just protein and fat if that's all you're eating for the most part and you're active, right? So I can understand why people might look at it and go, how does she pull that off,
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the potatoes they serve with it or anything else. It's just pork knuckle and that's it. And yeah, I'm really active. I mean, I run marathons and I lift weights and I do yoga now. And I mean, I pretty much don't sit still at all. So, I mean, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were there with me. We had duck confit, and we tried to go back for more duck confit, but they were out.
Yeah, and I saw how much you loved, the pork knuckle in Germany, and I think it's just people will still look at plates that I eat and family members and friends, and they're like, where are you putting all that? I'm like, you don't realize like that this is what becomes our body tissue, and our body utilizes it. It's really when you're having it with all the other stuff that it can.
Like you don't do the bulletproof coffee, am I correct?
Oh, I never have.
No. Like I think that people will drink a 500-calorie drink of that. I would much rather have a 500-calorie pork knuckle. And I'm not saying calories are everything, but I'd much rather chew my food than drink my calories. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink bulletproof coffee. I don't drink any coffee. We talked about caffeine, and I just think like that aside, when you're not drinking any calories, you get to eat more. Yay.
Yeah, exactly. Now, she had a second part to her question, and she was asking about what you thought was like sort of the ideal healthy body fat percentage for women. She really wanted your opinion on that. That was Nina. And I mean, there are charts, and you can look up online, right, that show, the athletic category, fitness category, average category, and then sort of like, overweight and then obese. And you can look that up to see the body fat percentages. But I'm imagining that's kind of what you're.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend doing. She sounds like she's.
Sorry?
Nothing.
What?
She sounds like she's on me.
Oh, yeah, no, I think she's genuinely concerned about it because she said that she's had cycle disruptions, and
then you're definitely too low in body fat.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Like, and you normally would see that more in that like athletic or lower, like below 17%, range. So I think that's what she was. And you see that a lot with female athletes and stuff, right? So there's so many sweet comments here. So many people love you and appreciate your work on here. It's so nice to see. So Linda is asking, Linda Low Carb, what's Maria's take on, well, we kind of just touched on this now, but people adding a lot of extra fat on keto? And how can we make them understand it's not necessary with the right protein? So yeah, I think
it depends on their goals. So that's a big thing. If they're an athlete, I would definitely, turn that fat dial up so they can perform better. But if they're frustrated, what I get sad with is people like, I tried keto and I gained a bunch of weight. And I just want to say, like, let's try it again. Let's turn the fat dial down. And then they're like, I was told to eat 70% fat. And it's like, well, if your goal is to lose weight, you want to turn that dial down, focus more on, proteins. And I'm not saying a plain chicken breast. I'm saying if you have like a filet mignon, there's enough fat in that. Or if you have a steak, there's enough fat in that you don't have to dump a bunch of butter on it. And a lot of times dairy is going to be insulinogenic, so you want to cut the dairy out in most cases. Or if you're doing like whey protein shakes or whey in general, that protein is absorbed way too quickly and will cause a spike. And so that's the problem. So many keto products have whey in them, and you just have to say no thank you to most of those products.
Yes, I agree. Now, Jennifer AU, what are Maria's thoughts on non-caloric sweeteners? Does she recommend Keto Carnivore?
It depends on what the non-caloric sweetener is. I mean, obviously like sucralose, aspartame, those types of things I would never recommend. But I don't have a problem with like stevia and like monk fruit. A lot of those that don't. Actually, stevia is very helpful for Lyme disease, and so that's part of Craig's protocol, even though he's a carnivore. For some people, I know you said it encourages your cravings to come on, and so noticing what it does for you. But again, like I said earlier, if you're going to go and reach towards the Haagen-Dazs or the Ben & Jerry's, I would encourage you to try to make your own ice cream with non-caloric sweetener, like stevia or something like that. So it helps you get to your journey of carnivore, which I do encourage. Obviously, I just wrote a book about it, but it depends on what your journey is. And I have kids that are 9 and 10 that are always with other kids that have sweet treats and things like that. So yeah, I make them gummy bears. I make them all types of things, and I don't feel that I should be judged for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're really great options. And I know for me, like, they perpetuate sweet cravings for me. I know they do for a lot of people, but then I know there's some people that can just have them once in a while as a treat. And, so it's kind of got to be up to you. Isa Daily Wow says, I'd love to know more about protein and fat ratios. I've heard that you should calculate 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. What does Maria think about that? Or is there a better way to calculate my protein, because I still want to be in ketosis? Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sweetie. And I would say I do have a free calculator at mariamindbodyhealth.com. And not just focusing on the kilograms of weight, you want to look at your lean mass. Lean mass is what you want to focus on, and it's about 0.8 times your lean mass. And protein is a goal. Fat is the maximum, or fat is a lever, depending on what your goals are, and then carbohydrates is a maximum. So you could always go under the carbohydrates, but protein is the goal.
Awesome.
And you will still be in ketosis. Don't get caught up on a number. Higher ketones don't mean better fat burning, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people don't realize too that when you're mostly eating protein and fat, that your liver glycogen's already drawn down, so you don't have to worry so much about doing all the, checking for ketones and being sure that you're fasting a certain number of hours, because you've already drawn that down, so you're kind of always in kind of a fat fueled state in many ways.
Yeah, and the longer you have been keto or carnivore, the more efficient your mitochondria is, so your ketones will be lower, but that's not a bad thing. And if you're an athlete, they're going to be even lower because you're using the ketones for your fuel, so don't get discouraged that way either. So yeah. And if your blood glucose goes up 10 points, whoop-de-doo, that means really nothing. If you add some protein in, I promise you your results you'll be happy with that.
That's great. Silver Carnivore.
I love her.
I would love to know what Maria eats with all the beautiful recipes she's a goddess at. Does she really eat those goodies?
Oh, I love the Silver Carnivore. Yeah, I mean, there's some things I don't like. I like smoked salmon, but I don't like regular salmon. And so, I mean, yeah, I'll do recipe testing with it, but am I eating that salmon? I'll take a bite. I don't like it. I really don't, so I don't, there's certain things that I don't care for. So I have a lot of recipe testers, but yeah, I mean, it's either me or my kids. I used to eat more of the desserts, but my palate has changed so much that I would rather have like a filet mignon now or duck confit or something.
Yeah, me too. She asked, I particularly wanted to know about all the keto desserts in particular. That was her question. And does her eating window eat at 3 p.m.? And if she exercises fasted in the morning, I'm curious if she does OMAD. So we kind of answered that already. But do you eat the keto desserts?
So it depends. I haven't written a lot of recipes with them, but the keto desserts that I will still enjoy would be things that don't contain nuts, and most of my recipes don't. And that's just because for many reasons, but like nuts usually hold people back from their goals, but they just don't agree with me very much. And I'm not talking I'm talking about like almond flour, coconut flour, that type of stuff. But like the flourless chocolate torte that I made in Spain, that is nut free and can be made dairy free. Can't remember. I think we use butter there, but any dessert that really doesn't have nuts in, I will definitely taste test, if not enjoy the whole thing.
Yeah. Do you do something like, do you have it like on a special occasion more so, but just not like a daily thing or weekly thing?
No, it's not a daily thing. It's not a weekly thing. I think, I don't know, if you, again, it depends on what level you are in your journey or whatever, but you wouldn't have a muffin every day and expect to lose weight if that's what your goal is. Right. So I would say don't do that with keto either. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I never did that. I never encouraged that type of stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now Laura has a great question. I really believe in eating meat and that's what's best for you. Sometimes I miss the veggies too. Is it okay to have some green beans on the side or other baked vegetables? I also miss my coconut milk, avocado berry smoothies. So I said, could you clarify what you mean by is it okay, like specific goals? And she said, I love carnivore, but I miss my fatty smoothies for taste and flavor and veggies for variety. I want to keep my carbs low, but I feel like I'm cheating if I have these treats. My goals are general optimal health and to keep my weight down.
I would say instead of that berry avocado smoothie, I would try the smoothie that I have. It's in a book, but it's made with hard-boiled eggs. I know that sounds really freaky and gross. I did this when my son was really little because we didn't have a lot of money. And what's the cheapest keto thing? Eggs. And this little boy did not like eggs at all. And so I was like racking my brain. I kept this recipe for a secret for many years because it's so weird. But I actually made it into a pudding, but then you can make it thinner like a smoothie. But it was 10 hard-boiled eggs, a can of coconut milk, some unsweetened powder. You sweeten it to whatever, you use monk fruit, whatever you want to your desired sweetness. Obviously, your sweet tooth will lower with time. Added a pinch of cinnamon, some vanilla, and I blended all that up. There's your recipe, right? And you can thin it out if you want to with more coconut milk or less hard-boiled eggs, whatever you want. But that's a great way to get your protein in. It's kind of carnivore friendly, right? I wouldn't suggest replacing the coconut milk with heavy cream because it can be so, people do not understand. They think there's no carbs in heavy cream. They're showing a tablespoon. You add that up, you're getting a lot of carbohydrates in heavy cream if you do that. And the dairy insulinogenic properties and stuff like that. But that's a really great smoothie. That's very protein friendly. You're not doing the berries. You're getting rid of the avocado. So I would try that type of a fatty smoothie.
Could you
but
do
my
like
kids
a protein, like a protein shake or something?
yeah, it is with the hard boiled eggs. It's awesome. It's like a protein shake. Just like thin it out a little bit if you want to. If you use pure coconut cream, it's like a mousse. It's very like delicious. And I would have that for sure in a heartbeat. See the vegetables as texture, flavor. Don't see that as the center of your plate. You need a little bit of a texture or mixing it up, and you don't have like Lyme disease or autoimmune issues. I don't think that you should be very hard on yourself that way.
Yeah.
Not like you're going out to McDonald's. You're asking about green beans, hon. Like, I don't know. But that's me. I'm pretty chill when it comes to that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you enjoy them for variety, why not? Like I think people get caught up in like wanting to be carnivore because it's trendy and there's like a bit of dogma around it, but just being meat based is so wonderful. And if you're not cheating if you're having green beans and
right, like I'll
right?
add like garlic to things for flavor.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't have a reaction to it. To Craig, he does because of his Lyme disease issues. So for me, I don't have a problem adding a little bit of that, but I understand like there's different levels and different reasons to do carnivore.
Absolutely. Now there were a couple questions about sodium, and I was curious on your opinion, as to your opinion on this as well. But a lot of people are always talking about sodium, whether you should add sodium or not on carnivore, and there's concern from some people that if you add sodium to your food that you're then like throwing off the ratios of potassium, and then you kind of have to overcompensate. And then there's these long-term carnivores who say they never add salt to anything. But then I talked to these physicians who are saying like, no, you're really dehydrated. You have to add more salt. So I'm just curious what you make of all the back and forth on that.
It depends on your ailments. It depends on if you have high blood pressure. It depends on if you can sleep at night. A lot of times, lack of like being able to sleep when people do, especially like long-term fasting, a lot of times it's low salt. Sometimes it's low progesterone in females, but a lot of times it's low salt. And adding a little bit of salt in before bedtime, it doesn't have to be on food. It can be in water or whatever. That usually helps with sleep. If your energy is low, I would get that like looked at. If you're not going number 2 every day, probably low sodium. The colon needs salt. It doesn't need fiber. But if you think about like when you're getting rid of all the packaged foods, you're getting rid of rice, you're getting rid of breads, you're getting rid of like muffins and all of that. All of those packaged foods have a lot of sodium. And when you start cooking at home, we've been taught to be so light on the salt that we often don't put enough in our eggs. We don't put enough on the steak. We don't put enough on the chicken. And so if you aren't getting about 2.5 teaspoons of salt a day, you need to add that somehow. And that's kind of like an average number. So I would just work on a base by base cases type thing.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I know you go by a lot of Finney and Bullock's work, and they've had some charts showing like where the lowest mortality is, and it tends to be with like double what the government recommendations are for sodium, and closer to like 2.5 teaspoons at least to get in like 5 grams, I think?
I'm not exactly sure, but I just know that, like when people are dehydrated, you're going to be constipated. You most likely will have some headaches, maybe migraines. Your energy won't be as high as you want it to be. And so, yeah, I would just think like some people, like maybe they've been doing it so long, their body has learned to adjust but maybe that they are salting their food heavier than someone that's new to it being very light-handed.
That makes sense. Like just trying salting to taste and sort of seeing how you do with more or less. It has to be more individual. Kit Hunter 77. I think I have all of Maria's books. I love her. I would like to know what she recommends for people struggling with hypothyroidism and adrenal dysfunction. More specifically, is fasting good for that particular person? And what are protein recommendations as well?
With hypothyroidism, I would usually have them get their antibodies checked to see if it is Hashimoto's. Because in that case, you definitely want to get rid of the autoimmune foods. And that's what I have, like a couple books, like the Cleanse book, the Easy Dairy Free book, based off of those like autoimmune foods, getting rid of them, whether it be dairy, eggs, nightshades. I try to do meal plans for all of those types of things. But finding why the antibodies are high, most people can go into remission if it is Hashimoto's, if they get rid of the autoimmune foods. Protein is going to be a bit higher because the thyroid needs a lot of zinc. It needs amino acids. And that's the thing. Everybody's like, I tried keto and I lost my hair. All of these things. Your hair follicles need a lot of amino acids. And so if you're doing fat fasts, egg fasts, those, it's almost impossible to get enough protein in an egg fast. You have to eat like 24 eggs a day. I like eggs. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So with Hashis, you want to, there's certain, minerals that you can add in, but if you focus on, getting more protein in, you'll do well.
That's great. Now, finding Mrs. G, Maria's carnivore meal plans have less than 1,000 calories. Can she explain how this is safe and won't screw up your metabolism? It's quite a bit less than the 1 to 2 pounds of meat recommendations that most people say for carnivore. I'm terrified of losing the weight and then not being able to maintain such low calories.
Well,
which plans she's referring to.
Some of the, I don't know where she's getting that from, but the meal plans that Craig did in the Carnivore book, that is your protein goal. So like I said, you have to hit your protein goal. Fat is a lever, and then carbohydrates try to keep as low as possible. And in carnivore, there's going to be some carbohydrates, but that protein, as long as you hit your protein goal, on average, it's like 800 calories of protein for a female. You can go over that, but these are like the minimum. You can definitely go over that. These are like protein-sparing modified fasting ones. And so you will lose fat tissue, but you will maintain lean mass. And that's ideally what you want to do without your metabolism slowing, is keep your lean mass, lose the fat, and that's what those are based off of.
That makes so much sense because your resting metabolic rate is based off your lean mass, right? So your metabolism is not going to slow down if you're maintaining it. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Plans are like based off of protein, and then fat is, a lever. So you can definitely increase that if that's not your goal, is to lose weight.
Absolutely. Joyce Hanover, I just started carnivore a week ago after being keto almost 2 years. I'm 65, hypothyroid, a slow loser. I've lost 35 pounds total. My question is, do I have to count macros on carnivore, or do I just eat until full? They say because I'm older than 60, I should up my protein to 100 grams and not eat so much fat if I want to lose weight. But if I'm not eating carbs, it doesn't leave that many calories for the day. I know we don't count calories, but if I cut them too much, won't I go, similar to the last question, into a metabolism shutdown? I weigh 161 and my goal is 145.
Then I would do carnivore level 1 or 2 with her. I think you said Hashimoto's. So she's not doing like the dairy.
Hypothyroid.
Okay. I still would cut out the dairy and do what the meal plans say. That's what she's going to get to her goal weight without losing lean mass.
Great. Well, speaking of those meal plans, I've asked you tons of questions, but the meal plans aren't here. So let's tell everyone about your fantastic new book, which I finally got to get in my hands here now. Congratulations on writing another amazing book. It looks incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we ate all of the food in there, you know, if everybody's asking, but there's information in the beginning. There's meal plans. There's like whatever you need in there to heal and feel great. There's over, most cookbooks only have 100 recipes, and that one's filled. I actually gave them over 300, and they're like, come on, Maria. So we did an ebook with the other ones, but a lot of science, all those charts we were talking about, the nutrient density, the bioavailability charts are in there.
Those are my favorite part is the charts that you have explaining the different types of meats. I have them saved on my computer because I've had that book for a while in the PDF. These charts, love these.
Those charts really help. With your goal is to lose weight, you move on the charts differently. Yeah,
and you just have everything in there. And I think this is really helpful for people because people like me who are vegetarian most of their lives, they're like, what's a fillet? Like, what's a chuck roast? You know, and these kinds of things really help. And you have all the macros, you know, so you can see and start to understand. Like, I understand all the cuts now, but it took a while. It was like really confusing at first.
Oh, good.
And you even have them in here for organ meats too, which
all
is so
different nutrients.
It is amazing. It's such a fabulous book. You guys have to get yourselves a copy of this. And the meal plans you mentioned are all in the back. So there's just tons of resources in here.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
It is a beautiful book. Probably my favorite one that you guys did with keto. I love that one too. But it's great to see you and Craig too collaborating on, like, you guys bring, you know, so much knowledge together from doing it for so long, and working on the projects together. Like, that must be really fun to do too.
Yeah, he's Mr. Science Man, and loves charts, and he makes it really like accessible to people so they can understand it in a simplified way, without talking over them or under them, I believe. You know?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and being so generous with your time and answering so many questions. I know there's just, people have infinite amounts of questions for you. There's a lot more here, but I'd have you on here all night if I were to go through them all. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this. Now, where can people find the book? I'll put a link to it, but where can people go?
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Costco, pretty much anywhere that you want. Otherwise, there's other like carnivore recipes at keto-adapted.com. Lots of recipes.
Great. You have so many recipes on your websites, and they're all free. It's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Well, I can't wait to see you hopefully in person pretty soon. But until then, aloha.
Aloha. Mahalo, everybody.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the episode today. It was so much fun getting to hang out with Maria. She is absolutely amazing and so knowledgeable about keto and carnivore. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. And if you did, share it with someone that you think might enjoy it too. Hit the like button, subscribe so you get notifications when I release new videos. And until the next episode, if you want to check out more from me, head over to ketogenicgirl.com and have a fat-fueled rest of your day. Bye for now.